It's Jay again. Lecture 5, Economic Growth, Prosperity. What we want to focus on these 2 weeks is growing the economic pie. We're not going to spend much time thinking about how to share it until Lecture 6. The idea here is we're trying to grow the pie as much as we possibly can so that everyone has a chance to increase their disposable income, their well-being, and have a better life, however they want to define it, given they now have more ability to get the things they want and they desire, either because they have more income or because the costs of providing these goods and services have gone down. So let's take a look at economic growth, prosperity, and we'll break it up into parts again, make it a little more bite-size. So for most economists, economic growth is why economics matters, because we're really trying to increase the production of goods and services, not so that we got more goods and services, but that they become cheaper for people. We have innovation, so we have better goods and services, with the notion that this economic growth, as measured by GDP, is going to say something about your income or your ability to increase your income. And we're trying to make the economic pie bigger and bigger so everybody can get a share of it. How we actually split it, again, like I said, is going to be Lecture 6. Now, most economists, or a lot of economists, macroeconomists especially, this is their main focus. They really are concerned with how an economy grows, or why an economy stagnates, for that matter. There are many economies that don't grow, and we want to know why that is too, because those folks are stuck in an economic quagmire where their GDP doesn't increase very much every year, and their standard of living doesn't increase very much every year. And if you're at a poverty level income and you don't see a future for yourself or your kids or your grandkids because the economy's not growing, that's a particular type of economy that really is not providing you with the opportunities for a better life. It might provide you the life, you're fine with it, but it doesn't provide you a chance to change your well-being, and usually we think it's going to change it in a positive direction. Not always, and we'll talk about that as well, though. So why do we care about growth? Well, the easiest answer is it increases our standard of living, and our ability to accumulate wealth increases, which means the rule of 72 again. The faster we grow, the faster our standard of living doubles. More disposable income to do the things you want to do, which means consume or more leisure. More ability to accumulate wealth and capital, which means making investments. Again, like I say, this doesn't mean you have to be King Midas and have a gold-plated toilet seat, or you have to be a billionaire. It just has to provide you with what you're setting out to do, which is, for most people, trying to be happy. And so having a little more access to wealth, whether it's capital or investments or it's savings, can be a good thing, because it just gives you more opportunities to do what you want, right? And so usually we talk about economic growth on a per capita basis. So measured by GDP, gross domestic product, which we defined last lecture, per person, GDP per person. So if we take a whole economy like the United States and we divide it by the number of population, we'll get GDP per capita. So if we take a look at GDP per capita measured in the United States, and we look through time, and we start at the top, we see 2020 GDP per capita measured in 2012 dollars is about 52,000, a little more than $52,000 per capita, man, woman, child. That's what we have for each and every person. Now, as you go through that list, you can see that back in 1962, measured again in 2012 dollars, our per capita GDP was $18,200. I mean, we have added, what, $34,000 in terms of your income, in terms of your disposable income, in terms of your ability to have income to invest over my lifetime. So I was born in 58. So between 60 and today, the economy, well, let's see, it's more than doubled, more than tripled in terms of the U.S. economy, in terms of my per capita GDP. If we go back a little further, go back to 1912, so nearly 100 years ago, now we're talking about adding $40,000 in terms of disposable income, right? So the economy has grown a lot on a per capita basis, holding the values constant across time. So measured in real GDP, that's where we take the nominal GDP and adjust it for inflation, so price changes and how prices change, so that when we look at these dollar values in this figure, they're all measuring the same purchasing power, which would be measured in this case in 2012 dollars. So if we go back to when the U.S. Wasn't even a country yet, so over 250 years ago, we're talking about $1,000 per capita. Now, when we go back and think about this, 250 years ago, there was a lot of countries at about $1,000 per capita. But some of them have not changed that much over the last 250 years. A little bit, but nothing like we did, which is from $1,000 to $52,000. That's huge. So just put yourself back where you'd likely have been working in, let's just pick 1812 here. Most likely you would have been in agriculture or in forestries or in fishing, some outside activity, as opposed to today where you are likely in some kind of service or some kind of service or goods industry as opposed to manufacturing. And that ability to shift around labor to high valued products is why we went from 1,000 to 52,000. If we'd been stuck in an agrarian economy where all of our labor was put into picking corn or picking cotton or picking any of the crops, we spend most of our time at work, and we don't have the same amount, not the same high value added as we do for pharmaceuticals or computers or artificial intelligence or all the things that we do in today's modern economy. And so this is real economic growth in the U.S. You can go to the Federal Reserve here and have a look at the different charts, and you can see 1950 all the way up to today, and you can mess around with this data, looking at, in this case, again, 2012 dollars. Here's the link to the system, and you can look at all the data and how real gross domestic product per capita has changed and how the economy has grown. This is a great link for data if you're interested in this sort of thing. Comparisons in 2012, there were 12 countries in the world that had a per capita income of less than $1,062. So that's quite a few people. There are 19 countries that had per capita less than 2,000. 47 countries in the U.S. back in 2012 had a lower per capita than we did in 1812. So not all countries get the notion of economic growth. or not all countries have the institutions in place in order to promote economic growth, or the property rights structures, or the ability. And I think the key here is the ability to line up incentives, right? If you take a risk, you should get the reward. If you take a chance and try to innovate and try to come up with new ideas, you should be able to get the reward. All right, let's just stop here for 1 second.